Hey, greetings everyone. Steve Schleter with Never Ending Referrals. And today we're kicking off a series on winterizing your business. How do we get ready for this seasonal dip many of us are already starting to feel? And today we're going to kick off with some foundation, and then we're going to get right into the first in our series of key focus points, which is the care call. And the care call is all about creating connection. And still, how do we weave in a business component that never feels like we're taking, or uh, never feels weird, or never really even sets us up for rejection, because it's all coming from service and contribution. So that's where we're going to go today. And let's set some foundation first, however. And I'm going to pull up and share my screen. And today, as we think about where we're headed and winterizing our business, part of, well, really having a successful business in any time, much less the winter, is, do we have a foundation of trust with our clients, with our database, when we're in a time that's really, well, it's a very wackadoo market. The consumer's confused. I think much of our industry is confused. And how do we help them cut through all the confusion? And first, we have to have a foundation of trust. And so everything we need to know really about success with our database as we work through this winter is, are we delivering on these 3 points? The logic point, do our people know that we understand the market, the dynamics, the opportunities of it? Do they believe that our reasoning and judgment are sound? We know our stuff when it comes to real estate and this market right now. And then nextly, empathy. Do they feel like we care about them, their well-being, what it is they need versus maybe what we need? And so it's really about the care for them coming from contribution. And then authenticity, where they always they always experience the real you. It never feels contrived or put on or salesy or weird. Um, they feel this connection of authenticity. And you know what, folks, everybody's equipped with a BS detector, believability scale, right? And they know when we're not really authentic. It doesn't feel right. It's just a vibration that people get. And so we're going to start with the empathy piece as we go into the care call today. And future segments, we'll deal with the logic and the authenticity and various strategies and conversations for navigating the consumer through this crazy wackadoo real estate market that we're in today. And so as we think about the empathy piece, here's a key point that I want to make. And it comes from Susan Scott in her book, Fierce Conversations. And she makes the point, she says, the conversation is the relationship. The conversation is the relationship. So if we're going to build foundations of trust, well, as much as we might not want to do it, we've got to have conversations with our people. And so that being the case, let's talk about, well, let me share a conversation that I experienced with you and maybe some ahas that come from it. And then we're going to go right into the care call, the ones you can start making today. And so I'm driving down the interstate and my phone rings, and on the display in my car, it said Barbara DeLamo. And it was a 210 area code. So it's San Antonio. I live in San Antonio. I'm going, who? I must know this person, Barbara DeLamo. Who's Barbara? And I can't place it. And yet I do what maybe many of you would do. I answered the phone because in my contacts, I must know them. I go, hey, Barb, pretending that I recognized, the name, right? And hey, Barb, what can I do for you? And she goes, well, hi, Steve. Got to use Barbara's voice for effect. Hi, Steve. I was calling to wish you happy birthday. It's Barbara DeLamo. I'll go, well, hey, Barb, thanks. I appreciate it. But you're a little early. My birthday's not for another 3 weeks. And she goes, I know, I wanted to be the first one. Am I the first one? And I said, by a long shot, I think. Yes, you are. And again, guys, I have no clue who this person is. Can't place it at all. And then she says, Steve, I took Bold from you back in 2009, the very first Bold that was done in San Antonio. She said, are you still doing Bold? And I said, yeah, as a matter of fact, I am. And she asked where we were doing it and some things about Bold and short conversation on Bold. And then next she said, I know you had a girlfriend that lived in San Antonio. And what was her name? I said, Shelly. She said, yeah, are you guys still together? And I said, yeah, we sure are. And because Shelly had sponsored one of our Bolds and she had gotten familiar with Shelly. And then she said, so I know that you were actually thinking about a move back to San Antonio. You originally grew up in this area. Did you ever make the move? I said, yeah, I've been there 2.5 years. And she goes, man, I guess I was a day late and a dollar short. And I guess, of course, Barbara represented myself, and she asked where we were living, got my updated address and all of this. And then she said, what are you loving about San Antonio? And we chatted just for a bit. She gave me a referral to a nice brunch place. And then she said, so what kind of big plans do you and Shelly have coming up? We talked about a trip to Egypt, some other travels. And all this was less than 6 minutes, maybe. And I hung up the phone feeling completely connected with Barbara. Now, I went from who the heck is Barbara to feeling completely in flow, completely connected with Barbara. Now, there's some ahas in this that I really want you to take away. Now, here's the first one. As I hung up the phone, I noticed on my display, it didn't say Barbara DeLamo, it said maybe Barbara DeLamo. So on an iPhone, what that means is they're in my correspondence somewhere. And so out of curiosity, when I got home, I pulled up my emails to see, have I been communicating with Barbara and just didn't connect it? And here's what I discovered. I'd been getting an email every 3 weeks or so for 7 years from Barbara. I want that to sit in for a minute. Every 3 weeks for 7 years, I'm getting an email from Barbara, and my first response when she shows up on my display is, who the heck is Barbara? Now, let's go into the deeper lesson. 3 weeks later, I get another email from Barbara, and what I do this time, I actually open it. A couple of weeks later, get another one, open it as well. Why? Because Barbara and I are now in flow. Now her marketing's working. And how many of us, we think we're doing the right thing? We've got all the emails going out. We've got direct mail going out. We're never picking up the phone. And if the conversation is the relationship, and that's how we begin to really build the foundation of that trust, we're going to have to reconcile this. And we're going to have to lean into the conversations. So let's take this, well, and let me take it one step further. And one of the things that Barbara did, and you probably recognize it if you've taken Never Ending Referrals or you've taken Bold, one of the things that Barbara did in that conversation is she forwarded me. And you know, when you go through and you use this model forward, you don't have to go through all four. It just happened that organically that happened with Barbara. Think about it. She asked me about Bold. That was an occupation question. She asked about Shelly. That's a family friends question. What are we doing for fun in San Antonio? A recreation question. You know, what kind of future plans, you know, we have coming up, dreams, goals. You know, we talked about the travels. And I realized after I'd hung up with her, I said, darn, I got forwarded. And by the way, it was good. It was a real connection. It never felt weird. It felt super authentic. And I don't know if she was just being fast on her feet when she, you know, said I wanted to be the first one or whatever it was, but whatever it was, it just connected. So let's talk about the care call and how you incorporate a business component into the care call today. And this one didn't have a business component other than subtly she checked in. I know you had been thinking about moving back to this area. And so there was a subtle part to it. And yet, how can we have a very deliberate part and still have it be a care call? And here's what it might sound like. So let's say I'm calling Kim. And I call Kim, and I'm going to start with, hey, Kim, it's Steve Schleter over at Keller Williams. How you doing? And she goes, well, great. And I go, hey, well, thanks for taking my call, Kim. I just, you know, I'm just checking in with some of my peeps. I got to tell you, I've had a lot of people kind of calling and asking what's going on with the real estate market. There's so much confusion about where interest rates are headed or where the market's headed. Is it going to crash? And I thought I'd just be proactive and reach out to some folks and kind of give you a little update on things. And before I do that, Joe, just tell me what's going on with you and the family. Y'all have any big, exciting things coming up for the fall? And I'm just going to listen. And so it's kind of an open-ended forward question, but it was family focused. Do y'all have anything coming up? So it's kind of family recreation, you know, focused to see where it goes. And whatever Kim says, I'm going to ask an appropriate follow-up question. So, oh, well, we're getting ready to go to Disney. We're so excited for the first time for us to take kids to Disney. And we're like, wow, okay. Are y'all staying on the property? Or, tell me a little more about that. Now, you notice I asked an appropriate follow-up question that allowed the conversation to do a little deeper, mature. And then she's going to say whatever she says, and I'll say, well, that's really exciting. I'll be watching for all your posts and all the big fun, and can't wait to hear how that goes. Hey, let me tell you a little bit more about, I mentioned I was going to give you a little market update, and just curious, what have you been hearing about the market, about the real estate market? Now, write that down, guys. That's a critical question. What are you hearing about the real estate market? Because it's going to give you an opportunity to do one of two things. Either I'm going to validate what they say, or I have the opportunity to educate if they aren't sure, or maybe they have a misinterpretation of what we really believe is the reality of the market. And so it gives us an opportunity to validate or educate. And let's say that Kim goes, well, I was hearing that, hopefully the interest rates are going to come down because we've got an election year around the corner, and I would say, now this would be an educate opportunity. And I would say, Kim, I wish that were really the case. What our forecasts are telling us and what our research regrettably has been telling us is that the Federal Reserve and the government is more scared of inflation than they are high mortgage rates. The real estate market's still pretty healthy right now. And our belief is they're going to stay. In fact, the Federal Reserve even said in their latest announcement when they held interest rates that rates would likely stay higher for longer. And so we really believe we're in a elevated interest rate environment for quite a while longer. And so unfortunately, I think that's probably really the case. And let me ask you, you were talking about interest rates or hearing about interest rates. One of the things I would be remiss if I didn't ask is, do you guys have any plans at all around real estate in the next 12 to 24 months? Because there's some unique opportunities in the market right now that I really don't want people to miss. I want to make sure they're aware of if they have any inkling of being in the market. What are y'all's plans with regards to real estate? And I wait for an answer. She goes, oh, not really. I was talking to, it came up at a card game the other day, what interest rates might do. And somebody just made a comment that they always come down in election year. So no real plans for us. And I go, got it. Well, the reason I said is there's really some unique opportunities. So if you know of anybody we can help or serve, please feel free to guide us, guide them our way. We're happy to be of service or help. Hey, before I let you go, tell me, so you got the Disney trip, and tell me what's going on in your work world. Any exciting things going on in the world of work, or any other big future plans coming up? And I'm just going to ask another forward question. A lot of it's going to be based upon the relationship I already have. I can have looked at social media and maybe ask a question around something there, and they're going to have a response. I'm going to have an appropriate follow-up question, and then I'm going to wrap up the call with, hey, it was so great to catch up. And, any questions about the market, we're really keeping tabs on this, and please feel free to reach out. And I'll be in touch a little more often now, if that's okay, just to keep people informed with this kind of crazy wackadoo time, so that kind of know what's going on. Sound good? And then we just wrap up the phone call. And that's the simple care call. And I modeled something for you that I believe is vital to making this conversational. In fact, let me go back to share my screen again. And so I incorporated a couple of forward questions into that conversation, and I used a model called the Ford sandwich. And so I did let Kim know that I was going to have a business component, so it wouldn't create a weird, to the call, so it wouldn't have a weird feeling as I transitioned to it. I never want it to feel like the rest of the conversation was just a setup for the business call. So I just tell them there's going to be a business component. And then I ask a forward question, and then a follow-up question, appropriate follow-up question based upon the answer to the forward question I asked. And then I transition to the purpose of the call. Hey, so let me tell you again, I mentioned that I was calling to kind of give you some update on this crazy wackadoo real estate market. That's my transition to the purpose of the call. I have my message and my offer built into that part of the conversation. close with a forward question based on their answer, an appropriate follow-up question, and then wrap up the call. And using this little model, it can be very conversational, and it doesn't have to take more than 6 minutes. 6 minutes, 7 minutes tops. You'll have some folks that are chatty, and that's okay. And remember, today's goal is not to solve all the questions or concerns. So if somebody said, well, yeah, we are kind of thinking about some things, we really do want a bigger house, and it seems like there's more selection right now, and you'd validate that and say that's right. And yet we're concerned about the higher interest rates, and that's why we're thinking, hoping, they'll come down and say, well, we're not seeing that. And yet here's what I want you to know: there's some really opportunities in the market today where you can still, in some cases, get really low rates by a process we call buying down the mortgage, and getting that from contributions from sellers and builders in some cases. So if you're considering that, why don't we schedule a strategy session? There's no obligation. We can sit down and talk about your goals and the opportunities of the market right now and see if that might be right for you. And so the message, this is a care message. Our offer is around, the question: do you have any plans next 12 to 24 months around real estate? And then if they do, the offer would be to schedule a no obligation strategy session. So we'll talk more in our next segment here on what we call messages and MOFRs. MOFR meaning make offer for immediate response. And today, because we have to educate people, there's so much confusion. The key thing is to get to kitchen tables, have those strategy meetings, then they can decide in an educated way to move into the market or not to move into the market. And yet that you're the one who has been the helpful guide to help them make the best choice. So that's the care call. And we'll get more into some of the messages that have to match the market and some what we call MOFRs, making offers for immediate response, in our next segment. See ya.